sometimes in life I think you have to swim against the tide a little bit, and I think owning a classic car is one of those. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, Ed.
Absolute pleasure.
Welcome to Bridge Classic Cars.
Thank you. Pretty cool, isn't it?
It's very, very cool. You've had some epic adventures over the years, from walking the length of the Amazon. You have been dropped on an uninhabited island, and you've also slept on the streets of the UK. What do you think gave you your passion for adventure?
I grew up in the countryside, and because it was the 1970s, yes, I am that old, it was a much freer time. Kids could just disappear, and I remember you'd leave the house in the morning, you wouldn't come back till tea time at night, and we'd play manhunt all over the village and build dens and dams and stuff, and it was very free. And I think that part of my childhood definitely had a big impact on me. I didn't want to get a job where I was sitting behind a desk or commuting into an office. I thought that would be a fate worse than death, so I ended up joining the military because I didn't know what other job you could do where you could get muddy and just be outdoors the whole time. And then from the military, I stumbled into expeditions, I suppose, and just haven't looked back from there. If you can earn money from having adventures, then why not? We don't make decisions based on what's the right thing to do. I mean, let's face it, we're sitting in a classic car company. People don't make logical decisions to buy a classic car that's going to probably break down 5 times more likely than a new car. It's not going to be as comfortable, it's going to make more noise. You know, it's not a logical thing to do, it's a heartfelt thing to do. And I think my wife and I certainly don't make logical decisions all the time, but life's more fun, I suppose. Yeah.
All about having fun.
Yeah.
So, talking about cars, you've had your Land Rover recently stolen, haven't you, and stripped back and things like that.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, I was in Brazil filming at the time, and started getting WhatsApp messages of basically this shell of a Land Rover that's on bricks up a lane, and I looked at the number plate and said, yeah, it got stolen out of our back garden. Driven only about half a mile away to a little lane, and they took the wheels, the doors, the seats, the headlining, messed it all up because they were cutting all the wires to stop the alarm going off and stuff, and it's all been a bit of a kerfuffle. The garage reckoned that it was £32,000 worth of stuff that was stolen on the vehicle. That's how much like Defender doors and stuff cost these days, and they're just so hard to get. So I just decided to go on eBay and try and put it together myself, and I've had a day's help from my brother, who's a 4x4 mechanic as well, but it passed its MOT last week, and it looks like a bit of a harlequin. It's got multicolored doors and everything's like cobbled together, but I love it even more now because it's got character, because it's not a perfect Defender anymore. It's battered and bruised and it's got war wounds, I suppose, but because I've poured time into it, it's not a negative story, I suppose. It's still running. It's now our family car again. We were driving around in a Fiat 500 as a family of 5 with 2 Newfoundland dogs for the last month or so. So thankfully we're not doing that anymore because it's not big enough.
Would you ever consider a classic car?
Well, Defender is officially a classic car. I know it's not a classic car to some of the purists who'll be watching this. Yeah, definitely. I was just saying as I came in, actually, I was lucky enough to be a Land Rover ambassador for quite a few years, and the most recent car I had was one of the new Defenders, and when it was all specced up, I think the value of the vehicle, I didn't get to keep it unfortunately, but the value of the vehicle was £104,000, so a ridiculously expensive car, more expensive than anything that I'd ever really dreamed of owning. And I remember I think it was a 5-litre supercharged version of that Defender came out, and immediately I didn't want my car, I wanted that car. And this constant keeping up with the most modern thing, or the latest iPhone makes you feel inferior because your iPhone doesn't have the same camera on it or whatever it is, it's nonsense. And I think classic cars is kind of a 2 fingers up to that nonsense. It's like, I am not playing your stupid game of keeping up with the Joneses, I'm going to do my own thing. And I think it's a bit of a statement in that respect, and therefore I think it's a really nice thing to do, because it's sometimes in life I think you have to swim against the tide a little bit, and I think just to keep your morals or your values, and I think owning a classic car is one of those. There's something brash about having the newest and the fastest and the best, and yet showing off something which is old and quirky is less, it doesn't ruffle my feathers in the same way, certainly.
Well, what is next for you?
I've got a couple of other shows lined up filming for Channel 4. One's called Dad Camp, which is basically kids that are struggling at school, dads maybe having slight mental health issues, chucking them into the jungle in Costa Rica and see whether going on adventures can enhance their relationship, help them sort out their own personal problems. So that is really nice, and it's really in tune with who I am as a person, I think. I'm not really a survival expert. I've made a career out of making it up as I go along, if I'm honest, but that is a field which I feel quite comfortable, and I've always been more interested in the mental side of survival rather than how to kill a snake, how to cross a river, how to, I don't know, put up a shelter, whatever it is. I think how you deal with problems and how you deal with stress is far more interesting than the physical stuff. So yeah, so there's lots on. I'm very lucky, very lucky.
It sounds really exciting. You think keeping your head and keeping in a really positive mental health space is productive when you go on adventures?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't succeed at it all the time. I mean, I've been honest in my second book about having a huge breakdown post being on that island for 2 months. I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't have the courage. I was filming a subsequent series. I didn't have the courage even to pack my rucksack and go on the next trip. I was signed off for 3 months, didn't work for 3 months. I went into therapy, and I think the modern world is difficult for everyone to navigate. I think for kids coming into this world with everything from the climate problems to Brexit to the war in Ukraine, there's so many things to cope with that I think for me, yeah, it's super important to be open and honest about mental health, and I think actually being outdoors, going on adventures is a really nice sort of crucible in which to throw yourself, because I think dealing with, even though it might sound like it's not relevant to everyday life, if you're suddenly in a situation, right, I've got to get across that river, or I've got to work out all the things to do, you don't have the solution to a lot of the problems, so you're having to think outside the box to come up with stuff. So you're invariably getting wiser and growing and then gaining in confidence, because once you got to the other side, having used minimal kit or whatever, you look back and go, that's cool. I did that, but I worked it out myself, and I think it's weirdly, for something which started off as being quite egocentrical, I think, I walked the length of the Amazon so I could beat my chest and show off. It's ended up being quite healthy, and something that I think is quite a wholesome thing to do if you do it. If you're not just an adrenaline junkie who's jumping off cliffs for the sake of it and putting your life at risk for that rush, which I don't think I am really. I think it's a wholesome thing to do, actually.
Amazing, thank you. It's been lovely to chat to you today.
Absolute pleasure to come in. Thank you.
Thank you very much.